All right, YouTube, it is Mr. Mean coming at you this Sunday evening about 7:20, almost 7:30. And we are talking with the Mr. Kingsley of Tabard Adventures. This young man is the brainchild behind getting the Foundry VTT data set for Castles and Crusades. You can see the player's handbook behind me. I was fortunate enough to play test Lothar the Lost for him. We had a lot of fun. It was a fun adventure. If you haven't picked it up yet, or as soon as it's available, I believe it's going to be out soon, Mr. Kingsley will tell us about it. So anyway, Mr. Kingsley, tell us who you are, what you do, where you're at, and what's happening.
Geez, a lot going on. So I'm Doug Kingsley. I lost my first name many, many years ago, but some people call me Dan. Tabard Adventures, we started about 2 years ago, partnered up with some business partners in June, signed contracts in July with Troll Lord Games and Fraud God Games to start developing their materials for Foundry. And we also have a whole crap ton of our own IP coming out, a Patreon coming out. We have custom classes we're building. I got like
so much.
I could pull out a scroll and go through the list. So I got lots going on.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome.
Yeah,
stoked, man.
And I had the pleasure of doing the Lothar the Lost and giving you some feedback for that module. Is that module going to be included in the player's handbook, or is that a separate module, or is that a freebie?
No, it's not. So Troll Lord Games, the contract we have with them, we just released version 1.04 of the system for Castles and Crusades up in Foundry, and that fixed, I think there was something like 14 errors, coding errors within it that we corrected. That's all we were contracted to do. So we added no quality of life stuff in there. But the kind of agreement that we have with Troll Lord Games is we'll do this, but on our Patreon, we're going to start releasing some quality of life mods that will plug into Castle Crusades, like an advanced battle calculator or EV calculator versus just weight, so on and so forth, all these little nice things. And we have some classes coming out. So, for example, the first one is a pancratiast. You know what a pancratiast is?
I do not.
So Hercules was a pancratiast. Essentially, these Greek warriors would go into battle naked and like jump into enemy ranks and just start ripping them apart with their hands. They just like break bones, and they were wrestlers. Historically, they were the first version of the Olympics. These guys would go into, and their whole life was carousing, training, and fighting. That's all these guys did. So we built a class because we thought that'll be freaking awesome. And we were test playing it, and it's my favorite feature of the character. We're test playing it in the Secrets to the Frontier, which is an IP campaign that we have being released probably in June or so. A segue to that is I have built 50 towns. 50 towns. It is a population, the full management, or the corporate, the governmental structure. It has places of interest. It has a side little quest in every single one, and an NPC in every frigging town. So the party walks in there, and the guy who's running the game will know a full breakdown, everything in the town. They don't have to scramble and roll on crappy tables on the side. Everything's done. Anyways, we're playing that game. We're test playing it, and one of the players is playing the pancratiast. Actually, it's Ken. He's one of our business partners, and he goes into battle, and there's a homemade creature called the Broglin. It's kind of like a cross between a fae and a goblin, right? And he's in battle, and he grabs one. He says, "Can I hit the other Broglin with this Broglin?"
Sure.
Well, class features, you can actually do unearned damage to both of them. So if the creature is one size smaller, you can grab it, you do a grapple attack, and you can start bashing into other guys.
We've seen Hercules do that 100 times.
Right? So that's where we are with that. I think I completely lost my train of thought of where I was going.
That's all right. Well, I mean, that's the joy of an interview, is I ask questions and you answer. So it's funny how that works. So you got the deal with Troll Lord Games. They were just at Gamehole Con. I was there. I talked with Steven and I talked with Chuck and Dakota. Everybody is awesome at Troll Lord Games. They're such a mom and pop type
they're good people, man.
mom and pop company.
They're really good people.
They care about their product. They keep their prices reasonable. I'm still boggled. I just bought, while I was at the convention, I bought the Adventurers the the Adventure Player's Handbook and the Amazing Adventures. I couldn't think of it. They're generic RPG that kind of ties in with Castles and Crusades. I have a fondness for Castles and Crusades. In fact, I have pretty much every book they make, which I bought. And I ran about a year-long campaign on Foundry, and it was painful. I mean, and I was doing all the data entry. I was doing everything. I was making all the monsters, and it was just, I mean, it's not hard. It's tedious. And then like you, I'm in the computer industry. So to get off work after 8-10 hours of working on computers and then come home and do another, 3 to 4 to 6 hours of computer work, it got to be too much. And I finally dropped the campaign because I just got burnt out. And I didn't even want to look at Castles and Crusades because I was so, and they had somebody doing the data set, and it just wasn't very good. It was okay, and it was better than nothing, but it still wasn't where it needed to be for me in my game because I was already a year into the game. So using their data set just cost me more work, and at that point I was just so frazzled. But I did. One of the players that was in the Lothar the Lost adventure was Cosmic, who was in that campaign, and he had noted that some of the things were improved, some of the things were still the same. But then you came out with 1.04. We had already ran in 1.03, so we missed some of those updates. But I've been playing in it, and I'm pleasantly surprised, and I'm very excited to see where it goes. I did, with my own money, join your Patreon so that I could get those little quality so I could get those little quality of life tweaks, those little data packages that will make life a little easier as a GM, because I do plan on running it more down the line. But how's it been? Were you guys in talks before the Kickstarter, or did all of this happen as a result of the Kickstarter?
I've been stuck for 2 years. So as you said, you developed your own data set. So myself, I think there's Asher, a couple other guys who are on their Discord, which is a really robust Discord. It's a lot of activity on their Discord. We set up a group and we developed everything ourselves. So everything that's in the player's handbook except for the rules, we had done ourselves.
Right.
But I mean, there's only so many times you can distribute that before you're stepping on their toes.
Right.
And then when Reforged was coming out, that was my chance to talk to Chuck to say, look, man, why aren't you really pushing this out on Foundry? And then when they announced it, they talked to us, they called us first and they said, look, we're really thinking about putting this in a Foundry. Would you guys be willing to do the contract, to do the update? And my business, I just had one business partner at the time, Chad Long, and Chad was like, and Chad and I discussed it, like, yeah, we'll do this. And we went and found, that's when we found Ken, who became a partner instead of a consultant. And that's also when we found Hannah, so we could round up the company and start bringing this in. The list, I have a list of products that I'm discussing with them, with my business partners tomorrow night, and there's 27 items on the list. I mean, we've been approached by guys to do chivalry and sorcery, right? We've been approached by them. So
Stephen Turner.
Yeah, that's right. So Ken is actually doing the plan to see how hard it would be to convert that into a Foundry system.
Yeah, it's a percentage-based system. I don't think it's going to be terribly difficult, but no. Some things that look super,
I don't.
Right, and some things look terribly easy and aren't. So the thing with Foundry, and my biggest complaint with Foundry, I love it to death. I've dropped all other VTTs. I had thousands of dollars tied up in Fantasy Ground. And I dropped it as soon as and I was using Foundry during the days of .7. So I'm going back 2 years ago when it was $50 on, and you didn't know anything and you had to learn everything by yourself. And
there's no content, like zero.
no, D&D didn't have a data set when I first joined. It was, they were literally hawking it and and it's taken off. Now, the love of Foundry is the automation. Once you get it all set up and it works great until they do an update and then everything breaks. And that is the joy of open source community. Yeah. And until they can get a stable, release, and then maybe slow down on because their updates are, it seems like every week, which is awesome as a software developer. They're obviously, this is a passion product. They've gone full time. They have their own hosting service, the Forge. It's wonderful. But it is a lot of it's like, do I update before I run my game or should I update after I run my game so that hopefully I have at least a week to figure out all the bugs, and see, hopefully the modules or the plugins that I'm using get addressed. It has gotten a lot better. I think they're on version 13 right now, 12 or 13.
Well, they're building 13 right now.
Right. So 12 is pretty stable.
Apparently the transition from 12 to 13 won't be terrible. What they're doing is adding a bunch of features, and it shouldn't break what's already
right
there.
It's a bunch of back end features that will make adding new features easier. I will say that I logged in I think it was yesterday to your game, because for clear transparency, me and Dan hit it off when Chuck put us in touch. Chuck said, you need a grognard in your game, and I know just the grognard, and he gave him my information. And Chuck, for those that don't know, Chuck Kumbau is about 4'10", and about 4'8" wide.
Is he really?
Yeah, he's a little short guy, but he's amazing. He's the biggest heart in the world. He's a lovable guy. We've talked many times on Discord, but we've never met in person. So when I went to GameholeCon, I made it my mission to play in one of his games, because I've always heard it's a lot of fun, and it was. I also volunteered to GM for them because one of their GMs couldn't make it, and they backed out, but our lines got crossed, and they never it never happened, but somebody else did step up. So no games were lost. I played in 3 CNC games at GameholeCon, so I had a blast, and I had a lot of fun. Chuck is great people. You can't go wrong with people like that in your company. But I had the pleasure, again, full transparency, Dan and I became friends through Chuck, and my YouTube channel and my Discord, and we ran Lothar the Lost, and then Dan and I started talking more, and then Dan invited me to his Castles and Crusades game in his homespun world, using their mechanics, and so I got to build my rogue with the new data set, and I gotta say it was painless. Drag and drop. You just put out a video today, which I shared on my channel. It's painless. It's awesome. So a lot of fun there. Looking very much.
And everything is clickable. So every ability,
right?
The formula is there.
Yeah.
There's no more doing the math.
Right.
You just click it. There are some exceptions, so I'm not going to say it's 100% automated.
No, and you're always going to find little things.
More automated than it used to be.
It's a lot more automated than it used to be. The fact that you can, drag and drop, and that the racial abilities kick in, and that the equipment is there, and things like that is really. I've never played a rogue in my life. I normally play a monk. A dwarven monk is my typical go-to. I've played a lot of dragonborns if the setting allows. So I was kind of excited to play a rogue in Castles and Crusades because they're kind of neat. I had a rogue in my campaign, and so on and so forth, and they can be a lot of fun, especially if you play them right. So I'm looking forward to that game, but more on to the interview so that people can learn a little bit more about you. When did you start your role-playing odyssey? When did it happen? What's the first game you remember playing? Or GMing if you were...
1985 Red Box.
Nice. Okay. I'm lucky enough
Way
that
back then.
I was fortunate enough that my mom was my first GM. I was a very troubled teen.
Wow.
I was a teen. I was 7 or 8 years old, and we had a corner drugstore called Eckerd's, and my mom stopped in there and saw this Ziploc bag with a little booklet in it, you know, and some chits, some papers, some numbers numbered 1 through 0, you know, 1, 2, 3, you know, and then she bought it, not knowing what it was. But my mom was a consummate reader. You know, she read a lot of fantasy novels. She was never one into like romance novels. She read a lot of high fantasy, you know. And so she bought it. She saw Dungeons and Dragons. She's like, that's right up her alley. And she didn't know anything about it. She bought it. She read it. And then she said, hey, I had a really bad day at school. I was sent to the principal's office. I got in a fight. So she's like, come on, let's sit down. Let's do this. And if you know what, if you can keep your shit straight for a week, we'll play it next week. And so I did, and I immediately fell in love with it. You know, when we sat down, cutting the chits out for, you know, because there was no dice back then. Well, D6s were the only dice we had, but, you know, cutting the chits out and then putting them in a little plastic cup, and you would reach it. It's one of the fondest memories I have of my mother. So anyway, long story short, so you started with the red box, perfect. Moving through
After that, I played AD&D a little bit, and
who didn't?
back when I worked a lot when I was a teenager. But my favorite game system that I ever played as a teenager was TMNT and Other Strangeness, the Palladium system,
Yeah.
and Top Secret SI. I loved that game.
Yeah.
The very fact that a bullet could kill you
Right.
was very interesting to me. So I always found the concept of hit points so abstract. I had a hard time wrapping my mind around it.
Right.
But I knew if I shot you with a pistol and it did 1 to 6 hit points, and you had 4 hit points in the area, and it went over the 4 hit points, that arm was useless.
Right.
Right. I loved that concept. Right?
Yeah.
Now I've played probably hundreds of games throughout the years.
Well, you've seen the library, right?
Right. Mine's all digital. I have 16 gigabytes of PDFs.
Oh, only?
Right?
Only? Only?
Well, come on.
I've got a couple terabytes. But every game I buy, I also buy the PDF, if at all, if it's an option. And then what I did is I went back through my collection and all these books and looked for PDFs. And I mean, some of them are page by page scans where someone stripped the spine off the book because, you know, they're from 1985 and they didn't have PDFs back then. So yeah, I feel you. So yeah, so a collector as well. So my first odd question that I always love to ask is there's that one RPG that you've seen, maybe you've played it, you've probably read it, and you just think to yourself, damn, I wish I would have wrote that. What's that one game? And it's not a game that you work on or write. What's the one game that you...
Mothership.
Mothership. Yeah, that's a great... You know, I've had that answer before.
I've never played it. I've always wanted to.
I played it once. I do own. I bought it before they got big, when they were on drive-through and they were hawking their wares, and I got it as part of a GM Day sale, and I got it for like, I think $1, you know. And it's the same book that, you know, they put out the Kickstarter, and I thought the box set was a little too expensive for what it was. I get the harkening back to the classic, you know, box set like the red box or blue box, but I just thought $100 for a box set of cardboard. There's not even a hardback book in there. I just thought that was way overpriced for what you got.
You know, when I started gaming, so I lived in Korea for a few years, and when I came back from Korea, and all my physical books had been sold or given away or whatever,
Right.
and I started recollecting them. I got a couple of tablets, and I said, you know, I'm just going to dump all the books in the tablets. So no matter what game I'm playing, at the table we have books. Right?
Yeah.
And that is 100% the way that I go now. I only use tablets. I got one right here too. Right? So
Yeah.
I only use the tablets now.
I love it.
Although I did buy the Kickstarter for CNC Reforged, I did buy the full set. It just cost me a small fortune in shipping to Canada.
There's all my books. Yeah, I wanted them. I wanted to back the Kickstarter, but I'm anti-Kickstarter right now, and have been for about the last year. And so obviously I'm a veteran. And so Troll Lord Games has a great program for veterans. For anybody who doesn't know, you just have to send them a picture of your driver's license that shows you're a veteran, or whatever other proof that you can provide. They don't want DD-214s. Used to be send a redacted copy of your DD-214, but I talked to Steven when I was at Gamehole, and he was like, no, like your driver's license or your veteran's ID card, just block out the number or whatever, because it is personal information, right? But if you can show proof that you are a armed services veteran, then you get a 50% discount on everything they sell. So once it hits the store, I'm going to buy the Reforged at 50% off. And am I going to get it right away? No. I take that back. I did back the Kickstarter. I bought the GM screen because I wanted to support them, because they've been awesome as a company. I wish every game company had the same ethics that they do, because they really, really support their community. Their Discord is always hopping, and they're just a pleasure to deal with. But cool. All right. So then the next question is, you're on an airplane, you got your backpack with you, you're flying overseas, airplane's going down, it's going to crash. You're going to live on this island for the rest of your days. What's the one RPG in your backpack? I see the gears turning. And I've had some great answers to this.
If I even had an RPG in my bag, because I have my tablet. My tablet's got hundreds, but I can't charge a goddamn thing.
So maybe now you're going to put together an EDC kit, and you'll have a cellular little panel in there so you can charge your tablet.
Right. The only physical books I have, honestly,
it's any book, any game you want. Any game
I want.
Yeah, not what you currently have. Any game. You're going down in this airplane. Oh my God, I'm going to live on this island I'm going to eat coconuts and fish for the rest of my life. What's the one game that you can bring with you?
So I'm going to assume that I have to teach other people how to play, and I'm going to assume that I'm going to need the one book, only one book. So I would get the D&D Cyclopedia, because it has all the rules. It has the monsters manual and everything built into one.
You're going to paint one of the coconuts to look like a face so that you can have a group of 4 party members? You're on an island by yourself.
Exactly what I'm going to do.
That's awesome. Yeah, there you go.
My Wilson, my Johnson, my Titan, and my Smith.
One of the guys I interviewed, Dave, said a notebook and an ink pen, because he's a game designer. So he's like, I'll make my own game, and then I can change it. I got nothing but time to tweak it to make the perfect game. I was like, that's a great answer. And then the third,
I'm going to interrupt you. What book would you bring?
What do you mean?
Just a book. One book you could read over and over. What book would you bring?
Oh. I think the the Elf Stones of Shannara? I'd probably bring that over and over and over again. I would read that. I've read it 4 or 5 times now.
I would be torn between 2. All Quiet on the Western Front or Rifleman Dodd.
Both of those are good. You know what? I might grab one of the I can't remember the name of it, but it was the first Jack Reacher novel. That one was really good.
Yeah, I just read it not so long ago either. Yeah. Childs wrote that. I don't remember his first name. But yeah, I started reading The Reacher before the TV series.
Yep, same. Well, I've read them for years. I mean, because I was in the military. And, when you're in the military, you read military fiction. It just seems to go hand in hand.
They reminded me of Louis L'Amour novels.
I've read many Louis L'Amour novels, and they're really good. And he says that was an influence on him too. So there you go.
Yeah. It feels like the structure built. It was totally Louis L'Amour.
Right.
Totally Louis L'Amour.
And then last but not least, if you could game with one person, past or present, that you could sit down and play any role-playing game you want. The game doesn't matter. It's just if you could sit down and game with this one person, living or dead, who would it be?
So, actually, I think it'd be Will Wheaton.
That's a great answer.
A lot of people, Will Wheaton, right?
Yeah.
I think that Will Wheaton would not only be fine. He's open-minded, but he doesn't care if he rolls high or low.
Right.
Like,
Well,
it's
he,
all
you know,
the game.
the dice curse, right? He rolls
dice
horrible.
curse.
Yeah, he rolls horrible.
Yeah.
Did you watch what is it? Titan. What was it? The Fantasy Flight, not Fantasy Flight. Green Ronin. Titan. What is it? Their sci fantasy RPG.
I didn't.
He GM'd it. This was years ago,
Did he really?
back on Geek and Sundry. Yeah, he had about 4 or 5, maybe 6 episodes. It's on. I think it's still on YouTube. Titan's Edge.
Time conspires against me. I have very little time for things. So watching stuff, time conspires. Time hates me.
Yeah, I watch a lot of my shit while I'm at work. Believe it or not, I put
Okay.
I put YouTube on in the background and I just let it play. And you know, you'd be amazed at how much you absorb by osmosis. You know, so I'm streaming YouTube in the background while I'm working. And if I can't, if for some reason I don't, I do an audiobook. I just need noise. Absolute silence drives me batty. So
I have tinnitus, so absolute silence gives me that ringing in my ears.
yeah,
So I have to have noise.
Yeah.
I'm actually just listening to a book on the history of salt right now, which is absolutely fantastic.
you mean the
And I just
currency?
listened to a book not so long ago on the secret lives of cadavers, and it also was a fantastic book.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's so you got a huge list, a laundry list of stuff coming up. Are you sticking in the realm of Foundry? Is that going to be your platform of choice?
So at least for 18 months, we have people lined up potentially for Fantasy Grounds. We were looking at some VTTs that are older. Yeah, I can't go into that. Okay, so yes.
There's a number. I mean, I'm going to say I really like the way Alchemy's coming along, the VTT. But they just don't have 3D dice. And for me to play a VTT, I need 3D dice. I have to have it. I think, what is it? Iron Bear Rodeo or whatever that one is. Owl Bear. I think they just are about to get 3D dice. And Foundry, and of course Fantasy Ground, and of course Roll20. But I won't touch Roll20 at all.
No, Roll20 is a nightmare to program in too.
Right. Well, it's just archaic.
Brutal.
It's archaic, and they don't want to update it, and they keep taking money from people, and they don't do any quality of life upgrades. They've done the bare minimum. I know when Foundry took off, they released a big update, and they're like, "Oh, look, you can now have layers," and you always had layers in Roll20, but now, I don't follow it enough to speak intelligently about it. I just know I don't care for the company. I don't like their business practices, so I don't support them. But that's just me. But are you going to be branching out?
That's actually why we're pulling out from Drive-Thru RPG as well. As of December 18th, none of our products are on Drive-Thru RPG anymore. So there's 4 modules that are for sale on Drive-Thru RPG. There is Goblin Gobbler, Lurking Beneath, Sneaky Kobold, and a Muddy Mess. And all 4 of those, the contract ends on December 18th. So out they come.
Mm-hmm.
We'll sell them directly from our own store. We might lose some exposure,
Yeah.
right, overall, and we might suffer a little bit in the short term over that. But 35% is too big of a cut.
Yeah, and you're not the first publisher designer I've heard that from. And like I was just talking with Wiki Dave from Wiki from Faulty Wire Games earlier. I did an interview with him earlier because I've been wanting to interview him for a while. But he was saying the same thing, is that and there was a short period of time. There was like a 3-week period of time right after the major COVID hysteria had died down, where they jacked their prices up like if you did the nice paper color stitch sewn binding, it was like over $100 for a book, and it was like, that's ridiculous. And we're not even talking a mainstream book. We're talking, you know, some guy wrote it in his garage on a Apple IIc, you know, and they're charging like $109 for it. And it's like, I'm not gonna pay that. I can't afford that. That's ridiculous.
Way too cheap for that.
Right.
Way
Well,
too cheap for that.
you know, and I love PDF, but obviously I'm a physical book guy. You know, I want that physical book in my hand. I have bad eyes, and so reading on a computer screen is not optimal for me. So I like physical books, but I understand the need for PDF. But when you're charging $80 for a PDF, and then you're charging $109 for the book, that's ridiculous. And so, but the public outcried and threw a fit, and they dropped their prices again. They said it was because of the pandemic. I said, no, that's greed. That's straight up greed.
This is not my first business. This is my my second business. I used to run a business called the Kingsley Armory, and I was, of all things, I was an armor, a knife maker, and a shield right. Find another shield right. Good luck. Find another shield right.
Yeah.
So I went out of my way. If you gouge people, you get them once.
Right. You'll never get them again.
If you charge accordingly, if you charge fairly, they come back.
Yeah.
And if you're giving good product, good value for a fair price, right?
Yep.
Then you gain loyalty. And to me, that's a big thing. I'm not in this for a 1-year stint. I'm doing this for years and years and years to come, right?
Well, I mean,
this is the plan.
Look at Troll Lord. I mean
look at Troll Lords.
Early 2000s, they're still, what are they on 10th printing now of the Player's Handbook for Castles and Crusade?
This is the 10th printing.
Yeah, and we're not talking major rules update here. We're just talking grammatical errors, new art, a little layout, maybe very light rules tweaks, or things that they've found through playtesting and player GM interaction and company. They've taken it to heart and they've made little tweaks here and there. But we're not talking like 5th edition to 6th edition D&D, you know, or whatever they're calling it now. You know, we're not talking that. So that says something about a company, and their followers are, I mean, they're fanatics. I mean, they're people that love CNC, and I'm one of them. I mean, I would rather play CNC than D&D any day of the week. Yeah, any day of the week.
I already have a campaign outline for a campaign setup outline for Star Siege. I have one drafted for Amazing Adventures. We're in talks with Troll Lords to actually develop Amazing Adventures for Foundry.
I know. I'm looking because I'm getting ready to run an Urban Arcana Amazing Adventures game based off of the old WotC 3.5 game called Urban Arcana, where you had modern day, you know, America or the world with a Shadowverse where there was goblins and monsters and everything. And I've got players lined up.
Hit points.
Huh?
And you'd health and hit points.
Yeah.
What was it, fortitude? You have hit points, and then you have that real injuries.
Right. Crippling injuries. So, yeah, another one that's kind of, I don't know where they're going is Paizo. Paizo just released their, it's not Deliverance, I forgot what it's called, their new Deities book. And it is $79.99. Now, the PDF is still reasonable. It's $30. And I personally think that's a little steep. Now, I am going to say it's a 320-page book. So that's a chunker, right? But still, $80 for a hardback book.
The art alone cost them a fortune.
Yeah, but they have in-house artists and stuff. You know, they got supposedly they have about 80 employees. But you know, they got to feed those people, right? They got to provide health insurance. They got to workman's compensation and everything. So I get it. I just, you know, and I do believe artists don't get paid nearly enough of what they're worth. But I'm just curious as to what the percentage breakdown is versus how much money they actually make.
I have a hard time with Pathfinder 2e. It's so crunchy. It's
see, and for me, it's an easy game.
And some people dig the crunch.
I dig it.
Dig the crunch.
I dig.
Right? I play Castle of Crusades because I can make up rules, whatever, as I go along.
Right, and there's little to no crunch. You know, is it a favorite attribute? Yeah, well, you need 12 plus the CL. You're done. Is it a non-favorite attribute? Then it's an 18 plus the CL. You're done. You know.
Right? And if I want to change a class, I change a class.
Super easy, right?
Modify this if you want.
Yeah, that's the joy of CNC, and modifiers. GMing it to me is super easy because it's so easy. It's so open to, you can do whatever you want, you know, and That's what I like about it. But let's see, God, we've been babbling for over a half an hour. So we've got some games lined up. We're talking with Troll Lord Games. Is there anything you can say about any other properties that you might be looking into?
Yeah, so I'll talk about the Troll Lord Games stuff first, and we'll finish off what we're doing. So, December, first week of December is the Player's Handbook. First week of January is the Castle Keeper's Guide. First week of February is the Monsters and Treasure, and somewhere thereabouts will be under the canopy green. When we release the Player's Handbook to them, we also finished S2, which is Lion in the Ropes. We did that for them as well. With Fraud God Games, we're in final QA for Heresy of Rot, as well as Heresy of Rot and the Metal Queen. We built that both in CNC and 5th edition for them. I'm currently just started the development for End of Everything for them as well in 5th edition. Right? That's them. We have, like I said, Lothar the Lost coming out. I have a series of adventures in a place called Warpsbury. So essentially, the players will be mercenaries. You can be as mercenary as you want, but there's a rebel faction, there's a criminal faction, and then there's the royal faction,
The government, yeah.
And you have a fixer, and he will come and offer you jobs. Now, every job has a score that will put you pro or anti
Right.
other groups, and that will lead to a series of other chain of events.
Right.
I don't want to make it too video gamey, right? But I love that overall structure, that decisions have an impact.
Right.
Decisions
Consequences.
should have an impact.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And I want to be able to put enough tools in so that whoever's running the game has a guide they can work from. Of course, everything I write, I tell people, look, man, just because I wrote it doesn't mean you have to follow this. You can change this however you want.
Right.
If you want to make the bad guy twice as tough, make him twice as tough.
Yeah, it's your game.
all up to
Once you pay your money, it's yours. Yeah.
Right? And all I'm doing is everything I'm giving is a suggestion.
Right, framework.
The suggested story, right? But yeah, so we have that coming up. Like I said, we talked to Chivalry and Sorcery. We got about 2 or 3 other game systems that we've had high-level talks with, and we're going to start meeting with them probably in the next 2 to 3 months. There's 3 other systems that we're in talks with one's with the D6 system and converting that over to CNC, as well as probably Savage Worlds. Savage Worlds is something that we're heavily exploring right now. So
it's a good system.
Business partners has reached out to Pinnacle. I don't know if they've reached back yet. I will find out more tomorrow. But I read Savage Worlds for the first time last week, and you suggested it actually.
I know.
And I looked at it and I'm like, oh my god.
So fun. I'm running. You can't see the table over there, but I'm running Savage Riffs. So Palladium, Kevin Symbieta's Riffs, but I'm using Savage Worlds. And if you ever get the chance to talk with Sean Patrick Fannin, who is a hoot, he's on the channel too. But Sean, he tells the anecdotal story of how, when he says, he got the deal for Riffs, everyone's like, because it's well known throughout the industry that Kevin Symbieta is he protects his IP with tooth and nail.
Yeah.
And as well he should. Some people would say he's a little draconic about it, and then sometimes he was. But everyone was like, you're never going to get a license, to do riffs, in Savage Worlds. And he tells the story of how he made an appointment with Kevin. They know each other from trade shows and stuff, Gamma and so on and so forth. And so he made an appointment with him, and he came in, he brought the Savage World, the Swex Savage Worlds Explorers Edition. He brought some dice with him, and he brought some pre-made characters, and he did a combat scenario with him. And Kevin was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And Sean was like, "Wait, what? What'd you say?" And he's like, "Yeah, let's do it." He goes, "This is great." And so, now we have Savage Riffs, and it's awesome. It's a lot of fun. I'm excited to play. We're playing this coming weekend, so I'm super excited. So this is a big pie, and I think little companies like you that are reaching out and, grabbing what they can. I think it's awesome,
Well, the whole focus of Rip Tabard Adventures is to find the smaller guys who don't have the support. Let's give them the support. And we will work off of a royalty base.
Yeah.
We don't need money up front.
Yeah.
We will work purely from a royalty base. And the money up front, I think, stops a lot of people.
Right. Well, sure. A lot of these guys, have a 9-to-5 job, and then they come home and bang on their keyboard to make a game.
I have a 9-to-5 job.
The same.
I hear you, right?
Yeah. So being able to have that flexibility to work off of royalties as a business model is great, because you don't have to worry about a revenue stream as much as the guy who's doing this in his basement. And if he doesn't put a game out this month, he may not eat, right? Or she may not eat. So yeah, I wholeheartedly applaud you for that, and I think that's awesome. I got to get my little guy ready for bed. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. We're going to talk more offline, of course. Tuesday, I'm going to just destroy your game with my rogue. He's a bad person, but I'm so much looking forward to it. And I know a couple of the people at Pinnacle, so if there's anything I can do or any introductions I can make, Sean Patrick Fannin is a friend. So let me know.
Once we get our feet underneath us, Castle Keeper's Guide is halfway done. So once we get our feet underneath us, we will be moving forward into other avenues. But I'm so swamped right now. I mean, I think I do 60% of the work myself, right? So
I mean, that's what small businesses do, though, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, the division of labor is it's balanced. It just comes in waves.
Right. And right now is. Look at the. I mean, I'm sure you're watching the feedback on Trollord Games' Discord. People are eating up the Foundry. They're like, "When's it out? When's it out? When can I get it? When can I get it?" Well, you see 18 different questions, and then they answer it, and then there's 18 more. When can I get it? It's like, dude, just read, right up above. So the desire, the want, the need is there. So I can't wait to. Well, I've already kind of seen the finished product, so I'm very happy.
Well, you'll get to play with the final updates on Tuesday.
Right.
Before anyone else does, you'll see everything. And I think I brought in some stuff from the Castle Keeper's Guide that you guys will be able to use as well, like the critical hit charts that are in there. I brought that into the game. Some cool
because
stuff.
Backstab is very important to some of us.
Backstab, yes. Very
after I make my sneak,
That is correct.
Or hide.
That is correct.
And I think I already made the.
If the guy doesn't know you're there in the first place, I'm not going to make you roll a sneak check. He doesn't know.
Pathfinder has a great thing where if for a rogue, if your opponent has not taken their initiative action yet, if they have not gone, they are considered flat-foot. There's no muss, no fuss. If you go before them, the chances are they're flat-footed, they're not aware, or combat has just started and they haven't had a chance to react because they're too slow. You get your rogue's abilities, and I think that's a great ability. So CNC has its own set of rules, and I will work within those rules. But yeah, you'll see when I'm a player. I'm going to be a very naughty man. I'm a very devious rogue.
I don't do raw. I don't do rules as written.
Right.
I don't like people roll the more than they need to. I make a perception.
No, I love the storytelling, and so like I said, he's going to be a very naughty man.
I literally have hundreds of hours into the story.
That's awesome. I'm so looking forward to it. My little one is ready for bed, so I'm going to cut you off.
You need to go.
I'm going to say thank you so much.
We'll talk again.
Yes.
Talk again.
Tuesday night for sure.
Well, now that we'll schedule something when the next book comes out, or when some of the other adventures are done and whatnot. And I might even be able to send some stuff your way to test.
I'm down for that.
Yeah.
My players are eagerly awaiting the next installment, so that's always fun. So as always, I want to thank Dan for his time. Go check out Rip Tabard Adventures. I can't say it. It's too many words for me. Check out.
We are on Patreon. We are on Facebook. We are on Insta.
Is it Sky Blue now or whatever?
I don't
That's
know.
Twitter or whatever. I don't do that. Make sure in the chat here, you are in our private chat, you send me all your socials and all your websites and everything. I'll put that in the video so that people can help find you. I want to thank Dan and Rip Tabard Adventures. Thank you for giving me access to the CNC stuff early. I appreciate it. My players had a lot of fun. I'm going to have fun with it because I'm going to run more adventures and more games. Thank you for being you. I appreciate everything you do. Thanks for reaching out to me, and I look forward to all the great things that you're going to produce here in the future. So as always, peace and hair grease. And remember, Mr. Mean says, be nice. We're going to have a good night. Take care, guys.